Welcome to Graya Overload. I'm Anthony. We have now another security bug, Spectre Variant 4. Spectre Variant 4 is a speculative store bypass. And just to keep this simple, the speculative store bypass is just like you're in a browser and it's tricking the processor through what it's trying to access to go get data that it is not allowed to, or should not be allowed to access. So it's basically going into some of the speculative stuff that the processor has already done for another process and tricking it into give that information up. uh, Keep it kind of basic there. Red Hat has a nice 3-minute video. If you want to go watch that they released, I will post a link in the description below that has a nice little restaurant explanation that they did for this vulnerability. And so they did a very good job with that. But AMD, Intel, and ARM they're all affected by this. And Microsoft, what is it, Security Research Center, and Google Project Zero were the ones that released the information on this variant of Spectre. And so AMD has said it goes back to all the way back to Bulldozer. Intel has said that they're going to get microcode patches and OS updates out as fast as possible and work with Microsoft and the Linux community to get that out there. AMD is doing the same, and then ARM also released some stuff with Linux, I think, already to get their side out. So there's a lot of patches that are going on. It's something where if you're looking, if you have a new computer and stuff, make sure you're keeping it up to date. If your processors in the ones that are getting patched, update your BIOS, update your OS, keep it up to date as possible. I think AMD said it in one of their release statements as well, and I think Intel did too, is that update your BIOS, update your OS, keep them as up to date as possible to help mitigate against issues that are upcoming and always coming out. And I think this is basically Intel's and AMD way of saying, we don't know what else is out there. We're patching things as fast as we can. I'm making sure that we're doing our research to keep things as secure as possible. And in those updates, you can expect that there might be, a security flaw that may not be announced yet or may be out, and we're releasing it in there. And that's just slightly my take of, when they're saying keep your BIOS updated, keep your OS update. Microsoft is pushing out updates to do security. Linux is pushing out updates, and they fix things for security reasons as well. And that's just one thing that we're in this world, and performance and security are going to be walking down hand in hand this whole time. People want better performance, but they also want better security. And we've now entered a phase where it's going to be interesting, and I'm very interested to watch how these processors develop to be hardened against some of these attacks. And hopefully they do as much as possible to make sure that the user is protected as possible. And only time will tell to see how that is. Now, processors that are already out need to be patched, and OSs need to be updated, and firmware needs to get out. And it's going to be very crucial that all these updates get out. And I think that Intel and AMD need to go back as far as possible. Bulldozer's an old processor, but that should still be patched. Intel should go far as back, and I don't remember how far back theirs goes, but they've been dominant in market share. They got a lot of processors out there, so I'm sure there's a lot of patching that could be done. And I personally think that the more that AMD, Intel, ARM patch, get their processors up to date and secured as possible, the better it is for everybody out there. Now, the one thing is performance impact and how that comes at the security cost. And hopefully in the future that they basically work it out and make it sure it's as streamlined as possible and there's basically no performance impact, but that could be a processor release or two down the road. And right now Intel said with variant 4, what was it, like a 2 to 8%, I think, in their blog post, which I'll post in description below, as what they're basically taking a performance hit on. So just keep that in mind when you're updating these, that there may be a performance hit. I don't know if most people see a performance hit at all. I know that I have some application testing at work that does see a performance hit on some of the patches I have applied, but again, at the same time, the security side of it is quite important, and keeping up to date with your OS updates and BIOS updates is important for that. So we shall see. Let me know what your thoughts are with all these vulnerabilities coming out and what you expect here in the future. I expect more vulnerabilities to shed light on and to come out, and every part of the computer, especially hardware side now, is going to be more hardened against security in the years to come. It's just right now where some of those things weren't taken into effect. They have to scramble to get OS updates and microcode updates for BIOS to be able to harden it. So I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for stopping by Graya Overload and helping this channel grow. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching Graya Overload. If you like this content, be sure to subscribe